Hello everyone. I wanted to do I've already covered this in one of my earlier videos, but the quality of that video was not really that great. The audio sucked. Halfway through the video, an audio went out of sync, and essentially I wanted to redo my videos explaining the expanded universe and how it was canon and debunking that freaking Starlog Magazine quote. So a lot of my old points still stand, and I'll be dividing this video so it isn't that long as well. So there's a lot of people who believe that George Lucas didn't consider the EU canon because of that Starlog Magazine quote from 2005 that everyone likes to cherry pick off of Wikipedia and Wikipedia. Well, I'll start off again by reading that quote and debunking it. So George Lucas, he says in the Starlog quote, "I don't read that stuff. I haven't read any of the novels. I don't know anything about that world. That's a different world than my world. But I do try to keep it consistent. The way I do it now is they have a Star Wars encyclopedia, so if I come up with a name or something else, I look it up to see if it has already been used. When I said other people could make their own Star Wars stories, we decided that, like Star Trek, we would have two universes. My universe, and then this other one. They try to make their universe as consistent with mine as possible, but obviously they get enthusiastic and want to go off in other directions." Again, George Lucas does not say the word canon, not once. You cannot use this as proof. He doesn't say it's not canon. And also, again, there's a lot of other things that contradict what George Lucas himself says. For example, on, I believe it was in the LA Times online, I think you can find it online, he states that the reason why there is no sequel trilogy is because, quote unquote, there is no story to tell. It's been already done in the books, the games, and the comics. Things I think are incredibly creative. And George Lucas, who is, and that's the thing, George Lucas is a man who constantly says one thing in one interview and then all of a sudden he flips his mind in the next one. So just because he says one thing in one-off interview one time doesn't mean that's absolute proof that can never be contradicted. In fact, another thing George Lucas said was in the reprint to Splinter of the Mind's Eye. And George Lucas says, "After Star Wars was released, it became apparent that my story, however many films it took to tell, was one of only thousands that could be told about the characters who inhabit its galaxy. If these were not stories I was destined to tell. Instead, they would spring from the imagination of other writers, inspired by the glimpse of a galaxy that Star Wars provided. Today, it is an amazing, if unexpected, legacy of Star Wars that so many gifted writers are contributing new stories to the saga." So right here, George Lucas, he says that the EU is part of the story of the saga. Tell me one thing, people. What is the story of the saga? The saga is the movies. Right here he's saying it's part of the story of the movies. So they're pretty much canon. George Lucas also says things, or like I said, he says things that are later contradicted. Even Lucasfilm has done that. For example, George Lucas claims that he doesn't know anything about the EU and has never read it. Well, guess what? He only said, "I don't read the books." Listen to what Suru Stoney says on StarWars.com, June 2004. He knows the comics very well. After the fact, he reads the comics. George knows more about Star Wars than we do. So, he reads the comics. More evidence that he read the comics, from Timothy Zahn. As far as I know, he hasn't read any of the novels. From what I've heard, Lucas is a visual man. He likes the comic books for the visual aspect. And this was from the Book Report interview, November 1997. I also want to say what George Lucas is really saying in that Starlog quote. This is what Lucasfilm says he's saying. And again, this is from the same quote from Suru Stoney on StarWars.com, June 2004. He doesn't see the expanded universe as his Star Wars, but as ours. I think this has been mentioned previously. Maybe in other places, but it's not new info as far as I remember. That's all George Lucas is saying, is that the expanded universe is Lucasfilm's Star Wars. The films are his. Not saying anything about canon right there, people. So, also, Lucasfilm literally responded to this quote several times. Star Wars fans showed Lucasfilm this Starlog Magazine quote, and they literally debunked it. This is from StarWars.com, December 7th, 2005, in response to the "I don't read those books" Starlog Magazine quote. The quote you provide makes it sound like the EU is separate from George's vision of the Star Wars universe. It is not. The EU must follow certain tenets set by George through the films and other guidelines that he provides outside of the films. So as you can see, people, the expanded universe was not separate from his vision of Star Wars. So that debunks that bullshit quote. Again, people asked about this quote once more, and Lucasfilm responded on StarWars.com, January 2005. Parallel universe suggests that each universe can go in separate directions, which really isn't the case with regard to the EU. The EU is bound by what is seen in the most current version of the films and by directives from George Lucas. So as you can see, the expanded universe was not a parallel universe. So you people can deny it all you want. And again, Leland Chee said on his Twitter in August 2009, Holocron Keeper does not support the notion of parallel Star Wars universes. Again, I already used this quote before, but Lucasfilm states that Lucas approves of The Force Unleashed being official canon. Lucas approves every important addition to the canon, The ambitious story beats contained in the new game, The Force Unleashed, were permitted only after he signed off, and spent hours talking to developers about the relationship between Darth Vader and the Emperor. And this is from TheWire.com, August 2008. So, there you have it, people. I debunked that bullshit Starlog quote. Now, I'll have a two-parter of this video pretty soon. I'll basically redo the rest and prove that it was canon as a whole. So, stay tuned, people, and have a good day.